Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
And this is Ruddy Court Odors, that podcast where we're more mature than Doctor Who because this week we watched Everything Changes.
Written by Russell T. Davies.
Directed by Brian Kelly.
And aired on October 22nd, 2006.
Yes, as you can see, we've changed our name. As Doctor Who spun off into Torchwood, Trust Your Doctor has apparently spun off into Ruddy Court Odors.
And we're not going back.
We're never going back. Trust Your Doctor is dead. Long live Trust Your Doctor.
Yeah, well, another thing that, I thought we'd go back to is Russell T. Davies and his corniness and camp.
Yeah, but you know what? Okay, so I watched something like 7 hours of television/movie content yesterday, basically all in a row, because I guess that's what you do when you're bored and it's a Saturday and, there's nothing really else to do. Anyway, that's besides the point. I guess my point was, at the end of the day, because I watched this Lost at 1 in the morning, it was like coming home to a nice warm blanket, returning to Trust Your Doctor's
heyday.
Not roots per se. Not roots per
but
se.
Our heyday. I'd say that 2017 Russell T. stride was our heyday.
Yeah, we had a good rhythm going during the Russell T era. They got kind of shaken during the Stephen Moffat era as we once again returned to our shall we say, lazier ways. And that's it was nice, is what I'm saying. It was nice to go back to the kind of Russell T camp era. It was a good time originally, and it's a good time now.
Yeah. Well, this episode, I guess, is also worthy of note of ours because it's the first, mainline episode we've done that isn't really about Doctor Who proper.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm including Big Finish and the Cushing movies and such in Doctor Who proper, but those have the Doctor Who name attached to them. This doesn't. It's a spin-off of Doctor Who, but it's, formally called Torchwood.
We also delineated audio and book episodes by calling them audio and book episodes, whereas this is episode 251 of Trust Your Doctor. This is...
Wait, what?
Is it two? Are we at 301? No. Episode 301 of Trust Your Doctor. 251. I'm living in 2019, clearly. I knew it was one of those milestones that we stopped keeping track of after 3 years.
Yeah, it's all just a blur now. But anyway, Torchwood. I didn't do too much... Part of the course related. That. I didn't do too much research on the making of this, but I do know that when Doctor Who was rumored to be coming back, Torchwood was the code name that they used to keep Doctor Who under wraps.
Yeah, just like how Ruddy Court Odors was the code name we used on Twitter so people knew we were coming back to things we haven't watched, back to the quality of things we haven't watched.
Well, I guess I have to do that now.
I gotcha.
Well, it's actually similar to what we were joking about the other day of we've put so much audio of ourselves out there that anyone with enough time on our hands and a big enough vendetta against us could just edit us into saying whatever they want us to say.
Yeah, it would be like deep faking, but for voice.
Exactly.
For vocals. Yeah. I mean, it'd probably sound really janky unless you got the exact right inflection version of every single word we've ever said, which, again, given the fact that we've put out nearly 2 weeks worth of continuous content, probably isn't out of the realm of question, although it would be a big undertaking.
Yeah, I don't know, this might be hard to believe, but the whole YouTube poop community is actually still alive and well in 2020.
Wow, that is hard to believe, actually.
And not as, thriving as it was maybe 10 years ago, but still around. And some of the more recent ones, actually, unlike the ones from the heyday of this genre of video, actually are totally seamless, and it's actually very hard to tell that this is all edited. Like, it just sounds like someone talking normally.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Do we live in a dystopian apocalypse? Maybe. Maybe.
I think people joke about, like, haha, we're heading towards dystopia as, like, we're there, man. Like, how are we not there?
we totally are there. Like, with facial recognition, the police know, basically, or the government, actually, I should say, the government knows where you are at basically any time of day, not only through facial recognition, but also through the fact that they can, like, track your cell phone at any time, basically. The police know everything about you because of social media, and also the fact that Google, like, tracks everything you search. Basically, the government knows, like, more about you than maybe you even know about yourself. And every time I talk about this, I mention the story where, like, a teenager learned from Target that she was pregnant before she even knew she was pregnant, because her, like, search patterns about, I guess, her morning sickness and, like, Googling her symptoms, basically Google passed that information onto Target, whose powerful advertising algorithm was like, she's pregnant, and sent her, like, advertisements for, like, baby things. And she was like, yo, what the hell? And she took a pregnancy test, and surprise, she's pregnant.
Yeah, that's insane.
So yeah, I mean, we live in the world of this is like a cliche, but we live in the world of Big Brother, like, now. Like, we're there. It's not coming, we're there.
Yeah. And to the FBI agents listening to this, the reason I look up like weapons and military stuff is for this podcast. Occasionally.
It's like if you're writing a book and you look up, like, certain gruesome murder tactics and stuff, and then you have to be like, oh no, I wonder if I'm on a list now. Or, like, ruin my internet search history.com that just searches a bunch of things that'll, like, definitely put you on a list, like how to join ISIS and, like, how to make pipe bombs.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Torchwood.
So, as you could tell, we're getting to more mature topics now that we're after the watershed.
Yeah.
Like Torchwood.
Well, I read, Torchwood was sort of conceived as, it wasn't actually conceived as a spin-off of Doctor Who. It was conceived as something else entirely. But then it sort of morphed into this spin-off of Doctor Who with Jack Harkness in it, and sort of Doctor Who not callbacks, but not call forwards, like call lateral, like
tie-ins. Tie-ins,
yeah, like
I think is the word you're looking for.
And references and such.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple sneaky references to the Doctor, like, in this episode.
They weren't really, like, they're pretty overt.
Maybe that's something to keep track of. Maybe that's a new segment we can add to the show. Since every show we do, we come up with some weird and wacky segment to fill the void of our hearts.
To fill the void of, like, the fun segments we created when we podcasted about Blake 7 on Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast. Check that out.
I mean, kind of. I mean, that's where the trend has started, but it's saying it that way kind of implies that, like, the new segments we've come up with are not as good as the old ones. And I think some of them stand up there. I think some of them are up there.
Yeah, I do
Some
too.
of the Blake 7 ones weren't great, The very first one, giving them a random ranking every week, was actually pretty bad, like, in hindsight. So, I mean, yeah. Anyway. Apparently, so I had to look up the watershed because I was like, what does it mean to be broadcast after the watershed? Because that was part of the original conception, was that it would be like almost a British version of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is what I read, which is an American television show that maybe one day we'll watch for inevitable. I mean, it's inevitable given how long that show is planned to run for at this point. And so because of that, Russell T wanted to be more mature, so it had to be broadcast after the watershed. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? So apparently that's, according to Ofcom, well, whatever Ofcom is, I think it's the broadcasting code that British television channels have to follow. Anyway, for free-to-air television, the Watershed is between 9 p.m. and 5:30 a.m. And if you're pay-per-view, you can start the Watershed at 8 p.m. And until October 2011, the Watershed also ended at 5:30 for premium channels, but now it can go to 6 on premium channels. Programs that are rated 15 cannot be shown outside this period. However, if you're rated 12, you can be shown before 2100, which is the Watershed 9 p.m. So like The Simpsons and Doctor Who apparently was 12 rated at times, as was Futurama.
That's surprising.
And
well,
then,
not Doctor Who, Simpsons and Futurama.
Yeah. Well, so the Watershed also has to be a gentle transition, apparently. So if you're rated 18, you're not allowed to air until 10 p.m. on most channels without pin protection. So 9 o'clock, 15, 10 o'clock, 18. I guess that means, I think Torchwood was shown like right at 9 p.m. So I guess it's 15 rated. I guess you can drop F-bombs in 15 rated television programs.
And they took advantage of that to like a very full and fully realized extent.
Well, so I rather toned down the language like a lot moving into season 2 because it turned out that Jack Harkness was a character who was popular on Doctor Who with some of the younger audience, and so they dropped a lot of the profanity moving forward after season 1 because they didn't want, like, in case a kid caught the program, they didn't want them to like be turned off by Captain Jack, like just dropping an F-bomb, I guess.
Yeah, I just skimmed, so this might be wrong, but I read that they completely toned down the show and moved it to 7 p.m. starting with season 2.
Yeah. Torchwood is kind of weird because I think every season basically aired somewhere different. So the first season's airing on BBC 3, which is like Torchwood 3. I guess like not the main BBC channel. I think Doctor Who aired on BBC 1.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
And then I think Torchwood moved to like BBC 1 for season 3, I want to say.
Yeah, it went, I'm pretty sure it went BBC 3. So season 1, BBC 3, season 2, BBC 2, season 3, BBC 1.
Wow, moving up in the
world.
And
then it was like something else for season...
I think season 4 was also BBC 1, but I think it was a co-production with American or Canadian?
Yeah.
American.
Yeah, BBC 1/Stars was what it was.
Yeah, because I think it was a co-production with American television, so... but yeah, so there's your like brief history of Torchwood, kind of.
It was executive produced by Russell T Davies and Julie Gardner, the same, duo who executive produced Doctor Who and really were the
instrumental in success.
Exactly, and the driving forces behind bringing it back on air.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because I had always heard that Torchwood was sort of run by Chris Chibnall. I always thought he was like one of the most instrumental people in, and he is. But I thought like this was sort of his doing. Like maybe he is listed as producer actually. Now that never mind. Yeah.
Well, he's probably just not an executive producer.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, he probably has a lot more control over the program than the producer title would say, because apparently I read Russell T. The only episode in season 1 he even writes is the first episode. Like every episode from here to the end of season 1 is not written by Russell T.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure Chris Chibnall is basically the biggest like creative mind behind what we're about to get into.
Yeah, he contributes 4 scripts to season 2. I did read, like, of the, like, I guess 13. That like he basically contributes a third of the season for season 2. So, from what I read. Also, Noel Clarke, who plays Mickey Smith, has a script at some point. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah, no, like PJ Hammond obviously has got 2 scripts as well. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, PJ Hammond, best known as creator of Sapphire and Steel, which we've watched for Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Check that out.
Creator and all around, like, just as mystified as the rest of us by Sapphire and Steel.
Well, just as mystifying, I think, as Sapphire and Steel itself, because you watch, interviews with him, and he's just like, yeah, Sapphire and Steel, like, And and people say like, yeah, he doesn't know what's going on in Sapphire and Steel either. But unlike Sapphire and Steel fans, he doesn't even seem to care. He's just like, yeah, they're time detectives. They are what they are. Like, he doesn't seem concerned whatsoever with like the lore of Sapphire and Steel.
Yeah, I kind of admire that. I'm going to be honest. I kind of admire that.
I feel like most creators are like that, of like the fans dig so deep into like the nitty gritty and want to know every little detail about this world and all the characters in it. And they're just like, dude, like, I don't care.
Well, George Lucas isn't like that. But,
no, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, like the new Star Trek shows, right? Like Alex Kurtzman is like, like I respect the old, like, I guess canon of Star Trek, but I just want to make cool Star Trek. So like, okay, great. But one of my episodes, or one of Star Trek Discovery's episodes, contradicts this obscure one line in like the original series. Like, oh no, like whatever. I just want to make cool Star Trek.
There's also something to be said for like leaving things out. They're like, I don't know. I feel like people maybe nowadays, but maybe it's always been like this, want every single little gap in every single world and every single story filled in.
Yeah.
And I don't think that needs to be the case. In fact, I'd say that shouldn't usually be the case.
Yeah. No, it's a valid storytelling technique to like leave things unsaid or unseen.
Yeah.
That's like part of the brilliance of The Birds and most of that movie, where you just don't know what's going on, and it's never really explained. I mean, you know what's going on. I guess you don't know why. Is actually the thing.
Yeah, well, it's part of the brilliance of Sapphire and Steel too. Like, imagine a new Sapphire and Steel that kind of goes with the trend of, I don't know, the newer Star Wars or Marvel movies or whatever, that like fills in every little gap and every little detail. Like, that show just would not work whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, okay, they could try and make it work. I don't know if it necessarily wouldn't work so much as it'd be like really weird.
It wouldn't be the show that it was in the late 70s and early 80s. Like, you could do it, but it just would be fundamentally different.
Yeah, it'd be sacrificing the fundamental kind of conceit behind the show. Anyway, we've like digressed like a lot.
Yeah.
That's all I have, like, production wise.
Yeah, that's all I got. Torchwood, if you remember, was actually the overarching, like, not plot, but overarching, like, keyword / little hint that they dropped in Doctor Who Series 2, which was the 2006 series, so aired, like, right before / at the same time as this.
Yeah. I mean, that's also we kind of got the backwood of Torchwood. I mean, okay, so this must have all aired before Torchwood aired, because Captain Jack makes a reference to the finale of the season where Torchwood 1 is destroyed, because we see Torchwood 1 in Army of Ghosts and Doomsday with Yvonne Hartman and that, like, room with the, like, portal that they're, like, experimenting with, and the Doctor comes in, he's like, you can't do this, and they're like, well, we are.
Right, so Doctor Who Series 2, I just looked up, finished airing on July 8th, 2006, and then this comes out, like, 3 months later?
Yeah, so I guess it kind of served as, like, it aired during the off-seasons of Doctor Who, kind of like how Triple Play airs during the off-seasons of Inevitable. I use Triple Play, that podcast that everybody forgets we do.
Or that they never even knew in the first place.
It sometimes provides the most interesting, like, information on any of our podcasts. But anyway, go check that out and listen to our episode on the Thread trilogy. Or Despicable Me, the Surrealist Masterpiece. See, these are the kind of memes that people are missing out on by not listening to Triple Play.
Yeah, people are going to miss out on Vito Corleone, exposition master, whenever we finally get around to releasing The Godfather.
Yeah, we've been referencing that meme more like before the episodes even come out. And it won't come out in, like, for another 3 months, probably, because that's how long it's going to take us to do the Prisoner, which we've, like, comfortably announced by the time this episode goes out.
Yeah, speaking of weird orders, before I guess we really jump into this, I'm sure people have their own like custom viewing order for Doctor Who and Torchwood and such to weave these stories together in the best possible way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like how some people watch Star Trek in release order. Some people watch it in like chronological order. And it's like, oh God. Some people just watch like one series at a time, And I say watch it however you want. But if you watch it in chronological order, good luck keeping all the like plot threads straight. Because by the time you get to the like 80s and like Next Generation and Deep Space Nine are airing at the same time, and then Deep Space Nine and Voyager are airing at the same time, and it's like really hard to tell exactly where in the timeline they take place. And also like Voyager and Deep Space Nine taking place on completely opposite sides of the galaxy. Like, great.
Yeah, well, hopefully Torchwood won't be as convoluted, and maybe we can come up with our own, recommended viewing or whatever. Not that I even usually care. My response to like, what order should I view this in is just like, come on, just pick it, like, just watch it. Like, you're spending more time figuring out how to watch it than actually watching the damn thing. Like,
just watch it in literally any order.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like that article that I will be talking about on The Prisoner in a few days. That Andrew Pixley wrote, like, does order really matter? Like, no. The central thrust of his argument is no. Like, the order you watch things doesn't matter. And he cites a bunch of television shows that were aired out of order. And, like, part of the fun is, like, trying to figure out, like, the proper chronological order, at least for him.
Anyway, back to what we're actually here to talk about.
Torchwood. Open on intro credits.
Yeah, and I gotta say, this does not hold a candle to the Doctor Who theme. And I don't think it tries to, but regardless, it doesn't.
Yeah, but do you know what the best part of this theme is?
No.
It's the first music we've heard from Murray Gold in like 6 months.
Huh.
Murray Gold does the music for Torchwood.
Nice.
Yes.
His, I think I've stopped, like, missing his contribution, mostly because I think Segan Akinola, like, stepped up his game for Series 12. But yeah, it is nice to have Murray Gold back.
I mean, it's something I was going to talk about later, but I feel like the incidental music in this episode is, like, partially critical to my enjoyment of it, because I don't get me wrong, I did actually enjoy this.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was just the fact that, like, the music was so great. Like, it was just great. I mean, not to say Segan Akinola's music for Doctor Who is not great. It's just, this is, like, honestly completely different than Doctor Who. Like, the music is it's still orchestral, which I guess is Murray Gould's thing, but, like, it just feels completely different from Doctor Who, and that's, like, pretty difficult to do if you're composing this huge television show, right? So
yeah, and I think perhaps we'll talk about this in the coming weeks, but maybe the music will contribute to differentiating Torchwood from Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the episode opens with a dead guy.
Yeah, like a body, a crime scene, basically. And we meet PCI Gwen Cooper.
Right. She's sort of the equivalent of like a Doctor Who companion, where she's like an audience kind of surrogate, where she's thrust into this weird situation.
Yeah, were you like immediately aware from like the get-go that Russell T was doing the same thing he did in Rose, where he introduced the like main characters of the show through the eyes of an outsider?
Yeah, I think I was immediately aware of that.
Because I started to pick up on it right about 5 seconds from now.
Is that, like, thinking back, is that something that only Russell T Davies did? Like, okay, so for sure that for sure wasn't the case in the classic show, so just count all of that out. Like, we were never really in the eyes and ears of the companions in the classic show. Except
it's definitely something only Russell T did. Like, I'm just thinking to the 11th Hour, like that. We follow the Doctor for that whole story.
Yeah, you're right. And even in the pilot as well.
The pilot is like the closest Moffat gets to doing it this way, but we still follow the Doctor.
Right.
And I haven't brought this up on the show yet because I haven't found an opportune time, but I did you hear this interesting theory about why some people didn't like the Moffat era, and that's because before Stephen, and I don't know, I'm gonna qualify this before I say it actually, that I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but I want to throw it out there because I think it's interesting to think about. That Stephen Moffat made Doctor Who about the Doctor, and before Stephen Moffat, the show was always about the adventure, and the Doctor was a character in the adventure, and then when Moffat took over, the show became about the Doctor. Which, just throwing that out there, because I think it's interesting. And I think it goes, I think there's evidence both ways. But
I mean, I think that definitely has some merit. And I don't think it's I don't think you can say yes, this is a definitive cutoff point. Before this, the show wasn't about the Doctor, and after 2010, it was, because you think back to Trial of a Time Lord and The Ultimate Foe, and that was very much about the Doctor as a character. Mm-hmm. But I think in general, I think that's true.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we get most of the Doctor's backstory. If you really think about it, during the Moffat era, what did Russell T introduce us to? The Time Lord. But then what did Moffat introduce us to? Well, we see the Doctor as a kid in Listen. We hear about the whole, good man goes to war. We hear about the whole Doctor Who prophecy. The Doctor stays on Trenzalore for 1,000,000 years. This is the Doctor's last incarnation, and the Time Lords, hate him. We get a lot more backstory on the Doctor during that era. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, because this is Torchwood.
Does Stephen Moffat write any Torchwood episodes?
I don't think so. But maybe. But I don't think so.
Anyway.
Well, so apparently the reason why I brought up Russell T doing the same thing he did in Rose is because I read that this is also something he did in his previous show, which the name is escaping me now because I didn't write it down. But so this is actually the third time he's done this.
Yeah, so basically a trademark of his, I guess. Yeah.
It works. I mean, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, it's a very effective way of drawing you into the world. And I mean, it's not he didn't come up with it. This is Watson and Sherlock Holmes, right? You're not in Holmes's head. You're in Watson's.
Yeah.
And not even Doyle was, I'm sure, not the first one to do that. That's just the first one that came to mind, and probably the most famous example.
Yeah, definitely.
So, right off the bat, we're treated to a couple F-bombs.
Just one, actually, right off the bat.
Oh, is it just
I can't tell if there was one later on, but yeah, there's just one.
There was for sure a few later, or at least one more later on. But this was kind of I felt that this, when I first heard that, I went through 3 phases. I was first it was whoa, they actually just dropped the F-bomb on Doctor Who. And I know this is Torchwood, but in the same realm, I guess. But
the same universe.
And then I went wow, that's really, really juvenile of them to do that, to prove that this is a more mature show. But then I transitioned over thinking that wow, that's actually kind of a brilliant way of right off the bat saying hey, look, this might not be the most subtle or tactful way to do this, but this isn't the Doctor Who that you know and love. This is something else. This is more mature. This is gonna be different.
Yeah, it's kind of the seedy underbelly of the Doctor Who world, right? In Doctor Who, we always get the sunshine and happy rainbows of the Doctor, right? The Doctor always saves the day. The Doctor's always a beacon for moral goodness, generally.
Yeah, generally, yes.
and coming into this right off the bat, yeah, I agree. It's I think it's a pretty good way right off the bat to go this isn't your daddy's Doctor Who, so to speak, right?
Right. I do, and I want to talk about this at the end, but I do feel that how some of the quote unquote maturity in this was handled, I feel it was a little juvenile.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
But anyway, Gwen Cooper is sort of she is a cop. She's on the scene. This story, I think, feels very different watching in June 2020 with cops as the main characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that my roommate and I have run into because we've been watching a lot of movies, and we're I want to watch something that's escapist. I don't want to think about
reality,
the injustices of the world at the moment, and they will like watch something and a cop will show up and be like, damn.
I've noticed it a lot lately too, of like how cops are, well, at least in the things that I've noticed in or been watching there, or even just caught like on TV because I still have cable, believe it or not. But like, yeah,
Me too.
But it's like cops are always they're almost never like the bad guys, Whereas like the past, and a lot of people have known this for a while, but like the past couple of months have like revealed a lot,
Yeah, it's kind of disconcerting too, realizing like how omnipresent cops are throughout like any program you watch. There's like a high probability that a cop is going to show up at some point, and basically they'll never be shown as the villain, which is also like,
I was thinking about this, but like in a way, Star Cops kind of did that. Like in a way, Star Cops acknowledged the corruption.
Blake 7 did that too.
Yeah,
like they were never called cops in Blake 7, but you could draw a pretty clear analog between like the Federation's like security force and police, and Blake 7 never shied away from the Federation being like just terrible
you're right.
to people. Like they were ostensibly, the Federation, and when you hear the word Federation, you think of some global government upholding some sort of morality. But Blake 7 was like, no, the Federation sucks. Like just as much as these literal criminals who are the heroes of the show.
Right.
But then again, like who defined them as criminals? The Federation. Like what was Avon's crime? Stealing money from a bank. Okay, like everybody else had a much worse crime, but like what was Avon's crime? Stealing money from a bank. What was Blake's crime? He spoke out against the Federation. Like that was his crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad Torchwood's going to be taking us away from the cops, and also it's like something to note that throughout this episode, Interestingly, Gwen kind of critiques Torchwood's methods of operation, and at the end of the episode, we do get Jack going like, yeah, you know what, you're right. Like, we can do more good with the resources we have, and we should do more good, so we're going to, and that's why I'm offering you a job, spoilers.
Right.
So...
But it takes...
watching this through the 2020 lens is going to be very interesting, I think. And it's going to be hard to avoid talking about it on the podcast, I think. So I guess we should just get that out like now. That it's going to be like difficult to avoid talking about that.
Yeah. But anyway, I forget why Gwen does this, but she goes up to like the top floor of just a building or structure.
Like a parking garage, I think.
And she starts looking down on the crime scene from above.
Yeah, so what happens is the cops get booted off the scene because Torchwood shows up. So I thought Torchwood was a super shadowy organization, and it's kind of weird to hear them throwing their name around to like kick people out of the crime scene.
Yeah, they can like the Torchwood, like they can throw weight around with the Torchwood name apparently.
Which is weird because then when Gwen is looking up Torchwood later, like no one's ever heard of it.
Well, they do something odd here, and I don't think they ever explain this, but they like stop time for a minute, don't they? Or like that's what the glove does, because it stops raining for like a minute.
I think it just stops raining like around them, but maybe that's just what the glove does, because the glove is like completely unexplained, which I kind of like, that we have no idea what the glove, like how it works or anything.
Right.
But so Gwen's actually kind of a pretty bad cop, like after this, because she like gets obsessed with finding this guy who took over the crime scene, where everyone else is like, look, we need to find the person who killed, these people. Like, we should be focusing on the murders. And she's like, no, I gotta find this guy who like kicked us off the crime scene. And then she like goes on a high-speed chase through London, chasing down this car. Like, Gwen.
Yeah, so we should explain. So when Torchwood shows up, they one of them, I forget which one, dons like this glove that looks like it's from medieval armor or something, and they touch the guy.
Yeah, so this is Susie. Susie dons the glove, which is important later to the reveal.
Yeah. She touches the guy. He is revived. And he starts freaking out. Yeah, and they've only got
2 minutes.
Yeah. He starts freaking out. They want to know who killed him. but he's not answering the question because he's just too out of it.
Because they just revealed to him that he was dead.
Right. So that doesn't work. And then, like you said...
But they do get out of him that the person who killed him attacked him from behind, so he can't identify who killed him.
And then, yeah, like you said, Gwen sort of gets obsessed with finding out what this all was.
Yeah, so she asks them to look up Captain Jack Harkness. There's no record for Captain Jack, and I'm like, really? In 60 years, literally no one's been named Jack Harkness in the entire world? Because she searches worldwide and finds one, like the Captain Jack, who disappears during World War II, which is the same Captain Jack as we know, if you watch Doctor Who. But if you were watching this without that knowledge, you might not necessarily know.
Yeah, what a weird experience that would be to watch Torchwood first and then have that be your gateway into Doctor Who.
Actually, the first time I watched this episode, I didn't know who Captain Jack was. We hadn't watched any of the Captain Jack episodes of Doctor Who. And I watched it with my dad, and we were so... I don't know, it didn't grab us. I guess was the thing. I don't know exactly why we didn't continue, but I think it just didn't grab our attention.
Oh, so you watched this
I watched this after... Basically, I watched... To give everyone a recap of how I watched Doctor Who, I started with The Next Doctor, and then watched the Fourth Doctor specials, then watched Series 4, and then watched basically from Series 4 onward till we were caught up, which was when the 11th Doctor regenerated, and then we watched Series 1, 2, and 3. And by we, I mean me and my parents and my brother. And so after we watched Series 4, we watched the first episode of Torchwood, and we were like, didn't really grab us, so... Fun facts.
Yeah, I want to talk about that at the end, too, of we'll get there.
We'll get there.
So Gwen has been exploring the town for a while. Or city, I should say. It's Cardiff.
Yeah, it's Cardiff. The great thing about it being Cardiff is that the production crew can just walk outside and film. Yeah.
Doctor Who didn't shy away from that either. There were plenty of scenes in Cardiff, although they Rose was living in London, but yeah. Really, London. It was... Wait, she was living in London, right?
I'm saying London in quotes because it was definitely filmed in Cardiff.
Yeah, it was, but yeah.
But yeah, no, she lived in those flat building with her mom.
Yeah, which in universe that was London, right? It wasn't Cardiff.
Yeah.
Okay, just to be sure.
But if you live literally anywhere near Cardiff, you're like, hey, wait, that's Cardiff. So Gwen eventually, just kind of skipping through, she goes to a hospital and she, I think on the case, but she sees Captain Jack running up some stairs. So she runs up the stairs chasing him, and she misses him, but she sees this alien who then completely just kills this caretaker who comes up to bring her back down, and she witnesses a murder literally in front of her eyes. And yeah, that kind of messes her up for a little while.
Yeah. During all of this, we're introduced to a few other characters. So some of the people who work police station or whatever, they're not too major. We're also introduced to Gwen's boyfriend, who I'm sure has a name, but I don't know what it is.
So Gwen's boyfriend's name is Rhys Williams.
Rhys Williams, right.
I believe, yeah.
He's not too major either, but I feel like he's going to be a recurring character.
Oh, he definitely comes back. Talking as someone who did the Britain's 10 Actors for this week and saw how many credits he has on Torchwood.
Mm-hmm. I feel like he's going to be sort of I feel like he's sort of going to be what Jackie and Mickey were in Series 1 of Doctor Who.
The grounding character who's completely normal.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he finds out about Torchwood at the end of this season. Would not be surprised.
Yeah. In the finale.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the big cliffhanger. Leave it on. He knows what... Well, then they can just wipe his mind because it's revealed that Torchwood... Well, I guess we'll see.
No, if they were going to go for a big cliffhanger with him, it would be that he's, in Torchwood or something. Which I don't know how they pull that off, but,
Well, I want to know if Torchwood 4 is ever going to make an appearance.
Yeah, we'll have to see. So, I mean, there were rumors, actually. I'm pretty sure they were unfounded. But a couple months ago, it was like, yeah, Torchwood Series 5 is happening, 2021.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Yeah. Well,
BBC, sorry, Big Finish makes Torchwood audio dramas now, and they made like a series that they are like, this is basically Series 5. Because I think they got with some of the writers of the show, and they're like, this is Series 5, guys. This is definitely Series 5s.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of these actors, depending if they survive long enough in the show to be here for Series 5 or not, would be willing to come back, given their minimal, shall we say, acting credits, like, beyond Torchwood.
Well, anyway, another hint as to the mature nature of this show is that, like, when the guy dies, there's, like, more blood splatter than all of Doctor Who combined. 1963 to 2020.
It's a good thing we stopped keeping a death count.
Yeah, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of loss of life along the way as we watch this show. Like, yeah, this is very, like, it doesn't look realistic. Maybe it did in 2006, but I don't think so. But, like, it's just, like, bright red blood just spraying everywhere, getting on everything.
Well, I'll tell you, it looks pretty realistic at 1 a.m. when you've already watched 6 hours of other movies that are all, like, from the 80s and earlier.
Yeah, well, in that case, it's definitely going to.
She follows Jack's I guess she follows the Torchwood van, which is like a Range Rover, but painted black and with the Range Rover badge taken off, so they don't have to pay royalties. And I was just going to say, it's really obvious by like the shape of the car. If you know what a Range Rover looks like, you're like, that's a Range Rover.
Yeah, there's sort of what I felt was a bit of a lull in the episode here, where she kind of it's a few scenes of her brooding about how she can't find Torchwood, and then a few scenes of her looking for Torchwood. We get some very distinct shots of like the Cardiff Bay area.
Yeah.
Which, I think I mentioned this last year, because last year I actually went to the UK, and I actually went to Cardiff while I was there. And I was shocked and disappointed to find out that Cardiff Bay is actually a river. It's not the sea. It's not a coastal town. That bay is actually a river.
Shocking.
I know I've mentioned this before. I guess you just forgot. But yeah, I felt like lied to somehow.
This is the biggest devastating revelation of all time.
How could they betray us like this? It looks like when you're actually there, it's a very wide river, so it almost looks like the sea. And you can just barely see the other bank of the river when you're there.
Well, that's fine then. We pretend it's oceanfront property.
Yeah, we can always pretend. We can always live in denial. With our heads under the sand. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, great.
Anyway, she walks into this pizza place.
Yeah, because she sees someone like deliver pizza nearby and is like, do you deliver pizza to Captain Jack? And he's like, nope.
No, but
she's like,
check out my sweet mullet instead.
Well, then she's like, do you deliver to Torchwood? And he's like, oh yeah, they're great customers. We deliver there all the time. And I'm like, wait a minute. Super secret government organization. Great.
No, they're outside the government and above them.
That's I mean, okay, not really though, because they were founded by Queen Victoria, so like they still had to report to the Queen.
Exactly, and the Queen is above the government.
Well, they're definitely above UNIT, so take that, UNIT.
Though they do kind of have that dig at UNIT later where they say like we're above the United Nations. The United Nations doesn't even know about us. This is going to be a really stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Oh, okay.
So, like, the Queen of England, or the royalty of England, not that they would ever, like, take any, like, major action, but, like, they don't have, like, power whatsoever, right? Like, they can't just, declare new laws or anything, right?
I think they can. I just think it would be frowned upon.
Really? They can just be, like, they can just go above, like, Parliament and such?
Yeah, I think so.
Damn.
I seem to remember reading something about this, that the Queen could just, like, if she wanted to, just, like, declare something.
Just declare war.
But they wouldn't, because, like, England is ostensibly a democratic country now.
Yeah, I'm sure if, like, any of them actually exercised that power, they would then, like, go into the process of reducing that power, you know? Like,
Yeah,
that would
I think
just
that's,
be...
like, what I read. It was, like, if the Queen ever did that, then, like, immediately Parliament would be like, all right, time to put some laws in place to rein the Queen in.
Right. Yeah, that's such a weird, like, to me, I guess, it's such a weird institution to have that as well as the democratically, elected government.
Hey, man, that's what happens when you cobble your government together over, like, 500 years.
Yeah. Anyway, delivering these pizzas works.
Yeah, she takes the pizza to where they deliver the Torchwood pizza normally, and this guy in a suit is there at what looks to be like a travel agency just on the docks, and he reveals the secret door and he's like, go on, don't keep Captain Jack waiting. And she goes in and there's this like spooky music and everyone's working and it's like this super secret lab type thing. And Captain Jack comes in, he sits down at his desk, and then just everyone starts bursting out laughing because like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I literally cannot do this anymore.
Yeah, so they were on to her.
Yeah, well, this is, again, where it's revealed that Gwen's, like, not really a great policeman, which is such a weird statement to say in 2020, but she doesn't realize that they would have, as a shadowy organization, that they would have, like, CCTV cameras pointed outside their base of operations, because she seems shocked when Susie reveals that they've been watching her on cameras for 3 hours.
Yeah, that's also weird because, as far as I know, CCTV is pretty widely used in the UK. I know for sure there are a lot of cameras in London. I think other big cities in the UK use them. I'm not 100% on that.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, if you're like I've been to London and like you see the signs like everywhere, like smile here on camera. They don't hide it like whatsoever.
Big Brother is now. So we're introduced to the team. There's Owen Harper, who I guess is like the tech guy. There's Toshiko Sato. I hope I said that right, but Jack just calls her Toshi. Who is like, I don't know. So most of the team doesn't have defined real like characters yet, because I think this episode is predominantly about introducing Gwen and Jack.
Right. Yeah, they don't really have personalities. We kind of get a little bit of their personality when they're using the tech, but they also don't really have defined roles, and I don't know if they ever will.
I think they do. I think they will. Just from what I've heard about the show, I think they will.
Mm-hmm. I know that Yanto, the guy who is sort of their cover guy, that's his role. He's,
He also drives the car.
Yeah.
And then also there's Susie Costello, who was apparently marketed as being like part of the team and like in marketing campaigns, like they included her and everything, but that immediately turns out to be a lie if you watch the entirety of this first episode.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I really like how Doctor Who and Doctor Who Adjacent does that. And they've especially ramped it up now with like some of the misleading marketing for Series 12. But I guess it had always been to some extent a part of this show, part of this new reboot.
Yeah, it kind of just plays into that like Big Brother thing where they can just like edit the trailers however they want. Last of Us 2 did this as well. I don't know if you've heard about this, about the like backlash towards Last of Us 2. And I'm not going to like spoil any major plot beats for anyone in the audience who's like really looking forward to that game. But I will say that the game received backlash for editing the trailers to make it seem like certain plot events happen that don't.
Well, Metal Gear Solid 2 was like most infamously did this like in the early 2000s when all the trailers showed you playing as Solid Snake And then when you finally play the game, you play as Solid Snake for 2 minutes, and then you play as a different character that a lot of people hated for the rest of the entire mission.
Yeah, weirdly enough, that's kind of something that happens in Last of Us 2 as well. I mean, I'm not going to spoil it, so...
Anyway, they sort of... I feel like they kind of just laugh Gwen out of the building. The only one who's taking her semi-seriously is Jack, and he kind of... Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, because I think they all know that Jack's going to erase her mind.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, like, laughing at her naivete and her continued naivete post leaving this building.
Right. We one thing we get before or two things actually we get before she leaves is the pterodactyl flying around, which
is apparently a recurring thing.
Yeah, seems like a bit of a hazard.
Yeah, you would think.
I thought pterodactyls were a lot bigger. I don't know if they've taken some liberties with the size, but I thought they were big.
Maybe they're actually calling it a pterodactyl, but it's actually like an Archaeopteryx or something.
No, Archaeopteryx had feathers as far as I know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I guess it's something to look up. How big were pterodactyls?
Google.
Well, actually, hold on. Now that I remember back to my childhood, the pterodactyl in the Land Before Time movies wasn't all that big.
Yeah, because those are what you look to for scientific accuracy.
Exactly.
I asked Google how big pterodactyls were, and Google told me 36 feet. They had a wingspan of 36 feet on average.
Jesus. Wow. That's massive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe this is a not fully grown one. Maybe it's a juvenile pterodactyl.
Yeah, or maybe it's a sci-fi pterodactyl, which don't have to abide by the rules of real life pterodactyls.
Yeah. Speaking of sci-fi things, Jack takes Gwen to the sort of confinement area that they have the Weevil locked up in.
Yeah.
We find out what the creature that Gwen saw earlier is called. They're Weevils, and apparently they are running rampant in the sewers underneath the city. And
Torchwood is collecting them, I guess.
Yeah, so how did you feel about this plot point? Because from here on out, I thought the episode was going to be about solving the problem with the Weevils. Or not problem, but like I thought it was going to have to do with the Weevils, and it really doesn't. So they've really set this up for something to happen later with them. Yeah, I think they've set it up for something to happen later, but I think at the same time, even if something doesn't happen, I think it's an effective way to basically show that Torchwood has their hands in a lot of pies, right? I feel it's an effective way to do that as well. I would just be a little disappointed if they didn't follow up on it, because we even get the scene where it kills a guy. I don't know if it's the same one, but one of the Weevils at least kills a guy. Yeah, in many ways, it's Gwen's introduction to Torchwood is through the Weevils. So, I mean, I would be extremely surprised if the Weevils didn't come back at some point in the season. Specifically also because when Jack takes her to the bar, he uses the Weevils to explain the fact that their base is basically right on a rift in space and time, which is something that was introduced in Doctor Who. And the Weevils don't really land in like spaceships as she might assume because it's an alien, but they kind of like fall through the rift, basically. Right. So that takes place pretty much right now because Jack escorts Gwen out of the Torchwood like villain lair that they have. Honestly, I think it's pretty cool. I really like the Torchwood set. I do as well. It almost looks it's really cool. It kind of has a TARDIS console room vibe. Like it doesn't like not exactly, but like it kind of feels like there's stuff strewn about. It reminds me a lot of the Eighth Doctor's console room, the very like expansive room with a lot of just kind of junk strewn about. Yeah, it almost reminded me as like a fuller realization. It almost seemed to me to be like a fuller realization of the Cushing console room because it had all those wires that like octopus mess of wires, but like it actually looked good. Yeah, because I guess the BBC actually put a little bit of budget behind this, at least more so than like whatever company that made the Cushing movies put behind the Cushing set. So Jack escorts Gwen out via their little elevator thing, and it turns out that there's a natural perception filter just on location.
Yeah, on that rock.
Yeah.
But so Jack actually explains that it's not technically natural, and that the reason why it actually exists is because a spaceship with a chameleon circuit landed, and part of the chameleon circuit melded with the space-time rift underneath the base. But invisible elevator sounds cooler.
This wasn't a reference to the TARDIS, right?
Oh, it absolutely was a reference to the TARDIS. There's no way it's not.
It was?
There's no way it's not. Like, specifically him calling out the chameleon circuit, to me, made it like it has to be the TARDIS.
Yeah, you're probably right. I guess for some reason I just thought, like, oh, maybe another ship has a chameleon circuit.
We see the TARDIS land, like, pretty much in that exact spot, like, in one of the episodes before Torchwood 3 exists. Like, I think, or maybe after it exists, like, when he's refueling it with, in Boomtown, actually, I think we see it land there, don't we?
Oh, huh. That's interesting.
Which is before Torchwood exists.
Yeah.
But that is when the Doctor's traveling with Jack, so that's probably how Jack knows about it.
Yeah. Anyway, this is when Jack takes Gwen to the bar, and he kind of explains what Torchwood is, that they're above, like, the law and the government and unit.
Yeah, and then in, like, another scene that's, like, really weird to talk about in the context of 2020 and, like, the statistics of how many cops perpetuate domestic violence, Jack roofies Gwen in this bar. Yikes.
Yeah. He slips her some amnesia drug.
But not even just amnesia. He mentions that he slipped a sedative in there too, which is like the definition of roofying. Oh, yeah. Which is like, yikes.
Yeah. So she goes home and she's like, I'm going to write everything down and tell people. And he's like, just try it. We'll come after them too.
And she's like, no, you're so mean.
Again, in this context of June 2020, is like, wow.
I guess I'm going to throw this out there. We keep saying, like, in the context of June 2020, and I want to clarify that for me, I'm not specifically talking about as if these problems that are being revealed are problems that have just, like, only existed now in 2020. Like, these are clearly problems that have been ingrained in police culture for a long time. It's just incredibly in the public eye in June 2020.
Yeah, I feel a lot of people, well, especially white people, like, had no idea about any of this stuff. Like, a lot of what's going on has like opened my eye. Like, I was like, whoa, like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I had that same moment like 3 years ago, I want to say, like when Trayvon, what was it for? When Trayvon Martin
that was like 7 years ago at this
whenever
point.
Trayvon Martin was murdered by a police officer, that was kind of my, like, damn moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important to continue educating yourself, I think, is the key. You know, it's easy to fall into the trap of only listening to what's on the news. You should do your own independent research. And you should stay educated about this kind of stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that I'm not acting like these are new problems. When I say through the lens of 2020, I mean through the lens of it's very public now, all of these problems.
Yeah. Well, I think to a lot of people it was public before.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
It's just America's literally falling apart at the moment over it, so. So Gwen's typing this up, and Ianto erases it. And
yeah, he like hacks into her computer and erases everything.
She passes out of the computer, and then her boyfriend wakes her up tomorrow morning. He's like, "Did you go drinking? Did you lie to me and say you were going to work and then go drinking?"
But
like, in a way, she did.
Yeah. But she, like, can't place anything. Like, she has no idea what happened.
Right.
And then we get this entire sequence of her trying to figure out or remember who Torchwood is and what she had done. And also, like, place who has the knife, because she goes into work, like, the next day or whatever, or that day. and someone has done like they've figured out the shape of the knife that was used to kill the guy or the couple people that died. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, before this, we should probably not skip the actually really important scene that occurs while they're in the bar, where Jack says no alien technology is allowed to go home with any of the agents.
Oh, right. This was funny because as soon as he said that, you just cut to like short little snippets of all of the other Torchwood members using alien tech at home.
Yeah, so Toshi uses the kind of most benign one. She takes home this weird alien like looking thing, and she uses it to scan the entirety of Tale of Two Cities into her computer.
How dare she?
She's pirating books now.
She's pirating a public domain book. How could she?
So she's like, yeah, she's the most benign. Owen, okay, no, go from least benign to, or most benign to least benign. Susie has the gauntlet, and she uses it to revive a dead fly, which is indicative of potential more evil things, but on its own, probably not that bad.
No, I wasn't. That wasn't a hint to me at the time. Probably should have been, but it wasn't.
And then Owen. Owen's using some sort of magic alien cologne to make himself irresistible to literally anyone, because he goes to the bar and this lady's like, what do you want? And he's like, I don't have time for small talk. So he just sprays it on himself. He's like, do you want a drink? And she's like, I'm taking you home right now.
And then when the woman's like boyfriend or whoever she's with, like, other, like confronts him, he just does it again.
And then he's like, I'm taking you home right now. And she's like, no, I'm taking him first. So Owen calls for a taxi. Owen, engaging in one of the 7 deadly sins.
What? Lust? How dare he? He should be removed from Torchwood at the earliest possible time.
Well, I mean, Susie commits one of the well, she doesn't commit one of the like 7 deadly sins, but she does commit something that immediately just sends you straight to hell, which is yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're welcome to this Christian like examination of Torchwood.
Look, I'm sure it's been done, and if it hasn't, at least we can say we were the first.
You ever go on like, and there are a couple, well, I'm sure there are a lot more than I know of, but there are a couple out there that I've been on of like Christian like media review sites that like review
I've seen
shows
them.
And movies from like a Christian lens and like how much they adhere to like the Bible and stuff.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
They're very interesting from a like, this is an interesting novelty kind of perspective, at least in my opinion. Some people are really deep in their faith like that, and they don't want their kids to see a race car like say damn or something. Swearing on my Christian Minecraft server. There's an ancient meme for all my boomers out there.
Oh my god. Anyway. Oh, one more thing to mention about the bar. I don't know if you noticed this, but I feel like the sounds team like totally dropped the ball with the bar because there's no background noise. It's actually a pub. There's no background noise in the pub whatsoever. The only sound in that scene is Gwen and Jack talking. It's like the quietest pub of all time. Like you can see people clearly like, eating and drinking in the background, but there's you don't hear it at all.
Also, the bar Owen goes to is like really loud and like there's background noise. So
maybe it's like a little hint that like Gwen has been drugged and that's like part of, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just so we can get this really important information from Jack. Because he basically explains how Torchwood 1 was London and that got destroyed in the Battle of Canary Wharf, which Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Torchwood 2 is in Glasgow, and apparently it's run by a very strange man, Jack says. And Torchwood 4 is just missing, apparently. Like, it's gone missing. And I was like, wait, what? So, yeah, now it's the scene that I interrupted you explaining. Sorry about that, where she sees the knife that they've reconstructed.
Yeah, and so she sort of becomes obsessed with, one, remembering what she knows she forgot about Torchwood, because she knows she forgot something, she just doesn't know what. And also figuring out or tracking down this knife. And both of those sort of endeavors lead her to finding none other than Susie.
Yeah, because the knife... So Susie, when she meets up with Susie, Susie mentions that just seeing one image from the time that the drug erased from your mind can, like, trigger the amnesia from... Basically, can trigger the amnesia to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the knife. She saw the knife on Susie's, like, desk or something in Torchwood. And
right.
That was why she was so obsessed with the knife, was because it was triggering the amnesia to go away.
Yeah. Or it was Susie was, like, sharpening the knife, I think, when Gwen initially walked in.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. The 3-pronged knife.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those, like, twisting, like, it's partially for stabbing, but it's also for, like, you know, you stab it in someone, you just twist it around and...
Right.
Yeah, to just put that image in everyone's head.
But then she talks about how she needed dead people to test the gauntlet, and she wants to become more in tune with the gauntlet so that she can use it to, like, revive people permanently, and that's why she was killing these people. But she can't use the knife on Gwen now because she's seen her, so she pulls out a gun.
Yeah, it's slightly funny the way she does it. I don't know if it was supposed to be or not, or I don't know if it was funny to you, but, like, she's kind of just digging around in her purse, and she's like, oh, dang it, where is it? Oh, here it is. And she pulls it out, and it's a gun.
Yeah, I have a note that's like, Susie's the worst murderer ever. She talks about how she loves this job and doesn't want to leave it, and my note is like, so why did you kill people then?
She had to test the glove. It's very clear, you know. She makes her... I'm kidding.
I guess she cared more about the glove than her job at Torchwood.
Yeah, so her well, I don't even want to call it a backstory because it's not even all that complicated. Her
motivation.
Yeah, her motivation. She wanted to test the revival glove, so she killed some people and did that.
Yep. And Jack hears all of this and comes up the invisible elevator, and she says, like, I've become more and more in tune with the glove, which is why the perception filter won't work on me. And then we see her just literally put a bullet straight through the middle of Captain Jack's head.
Yep.
And if you didn't know Captain Jack was immortal, this would be like a pretty shocking television moment where he just stands back up and the bullet wound goes away and you're like, oh, God.
Right. And as far as I remember, on Doctor Who, we never actually saw, like, Jack's wounds heal.
I don't think we ever saw Jack die either. We just learned, like, when the Doctor meets up with Jack, when he's now in charge of Torchwood, and he meets up with Jack, and he is like, how are you, like, what's going on? Jack goes, I discovered I, like, literally, ever since Rose revived me, cannot die.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we ever saw that in action, but we got it, like, pretty much told to us that, yeah, Jack is immortal. Mm-hmm. And the Doctor even explains, he's like, you're probably, like, you as a person are a fixed moment in time now. Like, your existence is fixed for all eternity.
Right. But yeah, he stands back up and that's that.
And he goes full Wolverine, and the bullet wound in his head heals.
Yeah.
And then we see, like, the darkest thing in the entire episode, where Susie, I guess she realizes the futility of her position and just puts the gun to her head and blows her brains out.
Yep. I kind of thought she was going to do that, so it wasn't too much of a shock to me.
I think I was just shocked at how, like, they went for it. In the first episode, they went for the suicide.
Yeah. I somehow feel that this episode is probably going to have the biggest shock factor, both because now we're going to be used to it, and also because, I don't know, I feel like, again, like we said before, they wanted to come out strong and be like, yeah, this isn't like Doctor Who in the child-friendly way that you remember it being, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Agreed.
Anyway, we now cut, I think, to Jack and Gwen standing on the roof of that...
It's the Millennium Center.
Yeah, the Millennium Center. Which is that it's like that building itself is like a recurring character almost. Like now that Doctor Who is like based in Sheffield, or I mean like in universe. I know it's like actually not, but like now that it's based in Sheffield, like we haven't gotten that building in a while.
Sad. I miss the Millennium Center and all our jokes about millenniums, the Millennium Tower and the Millennium Bridge and Millennium Silver.
Yeah, Millennium Silver.
So Gwen's like, why are you telling me this? You're just going to erase my mind again. And he's like, you want a job? We got a position that's open now because Susie just yeeted herself off the plane of existence.
And Gwen accepts.
And then the episode ends, and we get a preview for next week where an alien comes to Earth and is like, it's a sex-addicted alien, so this is how you know it's not your daddy's Doctor Who.
Wow.
I mean, that's what it is. I assume you watched that preview since you watched the entirety of every credit sequence that you ever watched.
I did, yes. I did watch the preview. And this is actually a good lead-in to kind of one thing I wanted to talk about, which is what I feel is the juvenile nature of the maturity and how they handled it. You know, I feel like a lot of this stuff is like, how do we make a Doctor Who spinoff but make it more mature? Or how do we make a show in general more mature? And their answer was like, blood, sex, and swearing.
I mean, how would you do it?
I don't know, maybe deal with like the themes in like a more in-depth way of like, because Doctor Who can get kind of black and white sometimes with its morality. I guess morality and especially I think during the Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat era of like completely vilifying the villains and having the Doctor be the sort of paragon. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think one way that I would perhaps deal with more mature subjects is, and I think I think let me be clear. I think Torchwood is going to do this. Is have like the investigation of like who's right, who's wrong, and what it all means in the end be a little more in depth than what Doctor Who has offered. I think this episode kind of skirts that and maybe introduces some of it with Torchwood being who they are and Captain Jack's admitting at the end, like, yeah, we haven't done it all in our power to be the best organization that we can be. So I think that's coming, right. But like at the same time, a lot of this just felt like, yeah, we're making it more mature, so here's this blood splatter everywhere, and now we have a sex alien, and now we're dropping the F-bomb 2 times. And there you go. Yeah,
but I think that's part of the, like you said, I think they're going to do it more moving forward with Captain Jack being like, yeah, we can do more, because I think maybe the juvenile nature is like kind of shows like kind of how childish Torchwood treats all of these, like Torchwood the institution teaches all of these things, like they treat the alien objects as play toys, and Captain Jack has to like scold everyone. It's like, you need to give me all your items back, like after it's revealed that Susie took the gauntlet. Mm-hmm. And just how they like really didn't care about all this, and how they are kind of basically just children. Like Captain Jack's got experience with all this alien tech, but all of these people who work for Torchwood are like, in the scale of the universe, children. And I think that's going to come into play later on, and that's how they're going to tackle these like darker subjects, because it's going to be revealed that like these people are like way in over their head and like don't really know what's going on, and that's going to lead to conflict, and maybe they don't know how to save the day, and they're not necessarily out there to save the day all the time. But I mean, I agree that in this episode it was pretty juvenile. I'm just saying I think that might actually be playing into like the fact that that is a way to show that these Torchwood, cronies, workers are basically kids themselves. Yeah, maybe that's I mean, it's like it's interesting that Owen has this like alien perfume that makes people instantly want to be on him, and he uses it to go like shag people in the pub, and he doesn't use it to like make people love him so much that he becomes like president or something. Like he's using it for a very juvenile purpose. we don't know how it works, but he always sprays it twice. So maybe one spray is just like people will always like you, and maybe you could use that for more nefarious or more complex purposes. But again, he's just using it to like go shag these people in a pub.
Yeah, I'm also curious as to how all these people join Torchwood. I assume we're gonna learn.
I would hope we would learn at least how some of them joined Torchwood, because that'd be like a really interesting backstory to have.
Yeah. Who do you think is the most interesting Torchwood member so far?
Ianto. But I mean, besides Captain Jack, right? Ianto.
Yeah, I would say so as well, because he's the biggest like question mark out of all of them, I think.
Yeah, he's the biggest mystery. Why does he always wear a suit? Like, why is he always wearing a suit? Like, what is his actual job? What does he do? Why is he so suave?
Another thing that feels weird about watching this show in 2020 is the fact that like Captain Jack very explicitly like hits on Ianto on the job, and they play it off like they make a joke about that. They're like, I think Ianto is like, that's technically harassment, or he says something like that.
He says, careful, that's harassment, sir.
Yeah. Another thing that feels a little bit, weirder than it probably did in 2006.
Yeah.
Not that it's a good thing that it maybe didn't feel as weird in 2006, but yeah.
I mean, it's not uncommon for television shows to show workplace relationships, right? Like, there definitely seems to be, because Ianto says it like back in a very, I think, flirtatious way. So I think there's something between the two of them. But it's interesting that the show would even make light of the fact, like, well, that's harassment, because they could have just ignored it. They could have just been like flat team structure, Jack and Ianto are on the same level, and them having a relationship. There's no power dynamic at play, right? Because part of the harassment is not only the fact that, maybe it's uncalled for or unwanted, sorry, on Ianto's side, but also like there seems to be the power dynamic at play where Captain Jack is in charge of the team and Ianto is his subordinate.
Right. And this show, I think that's one, I wouldn't say it's subtle, but I think more subtle than other things in the episode, like kind of showing us a darker side of Captain Jack.
Yeah. I'm hoping Captain Jack will be more, I'm hoping he'll be more like morally gray than the Doctor ever was, because he's clearly the Doctor surrogate in this show.
Yeah, definitely.
At least the way this first episode's set up. But I'm hoping he's not going to be like this. I'm hoping he's not going to be like, paragon of goodness that the Doctor always tried to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much, like, he's very much the Ninth Doctor, and Gwen is very much Rose.
It'll be interesting to see where this develops and how it develops differently than Doctor Who. It's kind of like the butterfly effect. You start with things that are very similar but slightly different, and they like catalyze off in different directions.
Yeah, well, for one thing, I doubt we're going to be taken to alien worlds.
Yeah.
So they're pretty much...
Highly doubt that.
And I like that. It'll allow this show to have more of like an urban fantasy vibe than Doctor Who does usually, I think. Urban sci-fi, I guess I should say.
Urban sci-fi. Urban science fantasy fiction. You just get everything in there.
Yeah.
Just get all the labels.
Well, I'm pretty excited to watch the rest of the show. I have no idea where it could possibly go. I know
Me too,
we're
actually.
talking about this slightly. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but like lately all I've been reading is like pretty poorly written, and usually not very good, like fan fiction and original fiction that I can find online. But a big draw of those stories for me, despite like how not good most of them are, is like how unconventional they are. Like a lot of them just follow absolutely no like known like ways to handle a plot or like any sort of structure that you'd be familiar with. So they're exciting in that sense of like you never know what's coming next. Like you literally can't guess what's going to happen in the next chapter. And Torchwood doesn't really feel like that, but in a way it kind of is similar, where it's like I have no idea where this is going and where they could possibly take these characters.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It's exciting to start another show where we don't know anything going in. Felt this with Sapphire Steel, felt this with Star Cops, Omitting Children of the Stones. No, I felt the Children of the Stones too, and then immediately realized that wasn't going anywhere.
It does in like the last 20-ish minutes.
Yeah. After you watch the same sequence of events 6 times over because it's recapped in the next episode, and then like shown at the end of this episode, and
that's why it's so brilliant. They make you relive the same sequence, just like Milbury, until you finally get to the good stuff.
Great. Well, I've got a little fun fact I found from the Amazon X-ray, because I right when the episode was ending, moused over Amazon and the X-ray popped up and I'm like, what is this fun fact? And the fun fact is that there's no captain rank in the RAF, which John Barrowman as Captain Jack is in. So Captain Jack is part of the RAF, even though he's an American. And there's only a group captain rank, so technically he should be, because apparently the rank pips he's wearing on his uniform are for a group captain, so people should actually, technically to be correct, refer to him as Group Captain Jack. But I guess that's kind of wordy, so there's your fun fact.
Oh. Cool.
Anyway, I didn't really keep any quotes from this week, except I kind of noted Captain Jack saying like he's just looking for the right kind of doctor to fix his condition that
his immortality thing.
His immortality. Actually, that scene is another thing that's weird to talk about in 2020 because Gwen's like, you didn't tell the team that you like came back to life, and he's like, I noticed that you didn't either. And she's like, well, yeah, and he's like, following orders, I see, just following my lead. You basically is insinuating like she would make a good like subordinate, and I'm like, But yeah.
Well,
so this is gonna be an interesting show to watch for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, agreed.
So Britain's 10 actors? Is that where we are in the episode?
Well, that's where you are, because I didn't... I'm kidding. Yes, it's where we are, and I didn't look any of them up, unfortunately.
I looked at the main
cast. It wasn't
cast.
fortune that led me to do that. It was laziness. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I didn't look it up till this morning, so not alone. I looked up the main cast, so the Torchwood team, and then I also looked up Gwen's boyfriend. So Captain Jack is John Barrowman, who has the most prolific acting career, who's in Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, and The Flash, which is like the CW universe. Doctor Who, obviously. The Producers, which was Russell T's show before Doctor Who, I think. I think that's what that was. And he was also in the movie Zero Dark 30, apparently.
Oh.
Eve Miles as Gwen Cooper. The only credits to her name that I recognized were Broadchurch and EastEnders. And Doctor Who.
Oh, she's on Doctor Who?
Well, because the Torchwood team, part of the Torchwood team shows up in Stolen Earth, I think. And I think that was Gwen and Captain Jack.
Huh. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's not...
I think maybe Ianto.
Yeah.
But I don't remember.
I don't think I picked up... I mean, I'm sure we pointed that out when we watched that episode. But, like, yeah, I didn't recognize any of these people.
Well, because we didn't know them yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Might be interesting to revisit that episode when we finish Torchwood, actually.
Maybe we can watch, like, all the... or that episode, and then maybe ones that, like, have to do with the formation of Torchwood, like...
Tooth and Claw.
Yeah, Tooth and Claw, yeah.
Maybe. Something to think about. So we have Bern Gorman as Owen Harper, with actually the most prolific acting career besides John Barrowman. He was in The Dark Knight Rises, Pacific Rim. He's in The Expanse, one of my favorite science fiction television shows of all time. He's in an adaptation of And Then There Were None. He was in The Man in the High Castle, EastEnders, and Coronation Street. So we have... I'm going to apologize in advance because I know I'm going to butcher this name. Naoko Mori as Toshiko Sato. She was in Doctors. She was in Casualty, which I remember someone in episode 2 of The Prisoner also being in Casualty, but I don't remember who now. And she, if you've ever played the Hitman reboot video game, She voices the artificial intelligence in the hospital. in the I don't remember where the hospital is now, but it's in Japan somewhere, I think. So we have Gareth David Lloyd as Ianto. He was also in Casualty. So I looked up Casualty because why is all these people in Casualty? It's this like television series set around a hospital that's been running for like 30 years.
Yeah, so another one of those long-running British shows. Basically running
consistently since 88.
Yeah, so just another one of those shows that like every British actor has been in at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, the lead actor for that show, like on IMDb, has been in like 893 episodes. Anyway, he was also in Warehouse 13.
Oh, wow.
He was in The Bill, and he voiced a character in Dragon Age Inquisition.
I didn't know IMDb included video games credits in there.
Yeah,
no, I knew they included voice acting, but I didn't know they included video games.
Neither did I until this week.
Yeah.
Until 4 hours ago. Anyway. Indira Varma, I probably butchered that as well, sorry. Susie Costello, she was in Pride and Prejudice, Game of Thrones. She was in Luther and Bones, Law and Order Criminal Intent, and then she also voiced a character in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Huh.
And then Kai Owen as Rhys Williams was in Casualty as well, and then in Doctors, and that was it. That was all I recognized. And that's all. That's everyone I looked up.
Yeah, that's pretty much everyone in the episode with a name.
Yeah, I mean, I guess except like the police chief.
Yeah, just some random cops, I guess, and the I guess the guy, the corpse, the guy who dies at the beginning.
And like Gwen Cooper's partner, who she just ditches to join Torchwood. Like,
yeah.
There's some logistical questions I have with her move over to Torchwood. Like, what's going to happen to the rest of her life? How is she going to explain this to Rhys? She can't just be like, I work at Torchwood now because it's supposed to be this shadowy organization. Like, what the hell?
Watch her just, like, that's how episode 2 opens. She's just, like, explaining Torchwood to him. He's just like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, sure.
Great.
Yeah, but I really wonder if this is going to be, like a cop by day, Torchwood member by night type thing, or if she's, like, actually going to quit and join Torchwood.
I'm curious to know when Torchwood does all their operations, because most of their stuff in this episode is at night. And then, like, the preview for next episode made it seem like a lot of it was going to be at night, too.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I'm pretty sure what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure we're going to find out that these people have, like, day jobs, except for Jack. Like...
Jack's day job is picking people up at the pub.
Yeah, I think, like, we're going to have some, like, not work-life balance. I don't know. I just think, like, Torchwood is, like, not these people's full-time things, you know? I think that there might be some conflict around that in future episodes.
I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually all I have.
It's all I had as well.
So we have one email this week, and I think it actually arrived before our episode on Time in the Ronnie. I just hadn't checked the podcasting email, so that's on me. I'll take responsibility for that. Especially since this like would have made more sense last week since we specifically mentioned what this email is about. So the email is subject line Big Finish, We Love Stories. Hey guys, about 5 years ago, Dylan mentioned to me that Big Finish were releasing The Sixth Doctor, The Last Adventure, which is an anthology of stories that ends with the regeneration of the Sixth Doctor into the Seventh Doctor. I'm happy to say that I finally got around to listening to this. What's kind of funny is that my first Doctor Who audio ever was The Nightmare Fair, and I'm actually glad I listened to that and other Sixth Doctor audios before getting into this one, since Big Finish gave me a better appreciation for the Sixth Doctor. I even listened to an interview audio from Big Finish called This is Colin Baker. It's very insightful. Colin is honest and he seems like a really nice guy. But anyway, I really enjoyed The Last Adventure. I don't want to hype it up too much, but I think you guys will at least like it more than Spiral Scratch. That's not hard. I actually got teary-eyed watching the recent YouTube video by a fan who used footage of the Sixth Doctor and used audio from his regeneration scene in The Last Adventure. I'm very thankful for Big Finish giving Colin's Doctor a proper send-off, and I'm glad that I can enjoy his adventures. Also, thanks to Big Finish, we now have the best outfit that Captain Jack Harkness has ever worn, which is the image I attached. Cheers, Stephen. And the image he attached is the front cover to the second volume of the Big Finish audios, The Lives of Captain Jack, and it's Captain Jack Harkness wearing the Sixth Doctor's rainbow coat.
Oh, yeah, I'll put a link to that in the notes.
Yeah, I've always been curious to listen to The Lost Adventure, but, Spinal Scratch is the definitive final ending for the Sixth Doctor, and then nothing can change that, so... Spinal Scratch did it first. Even though, I just said Spinal Scratch did it first as a joke, but Spinal Scratch really did, like, The Timeless Children first. Like, it basically canonized everything ever first. Because in Spinal Scratch, we meet, like, 4 different versions of the Sixth Doctor, and they're all implied to be, like, versions of the Sixth Doctor from other books or from the audios. So...
Yeah, you're right. Can't believe it, but you're right. Spiral Scratch did do it first. And better, no.
Ooh, you could die on that hill alone.
But yeah.
I have always been curious to listen to the final adventure, though.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe
that's something we'll get around to do. Well, not maybe, since our plan is to watch and listen to and read every Doctor Who thing ever. So we will get around to that.
Which is a losing battle. Like everything's being published and created faster than we can listen to it because it's being created by dozens of different people in different companies, and we're just 2 guys with microphones.
You just have to wait for that Doctor Who burnout. Like wait for the show to go off air in a couple years. Wait for people.
Big Finish will still be around.
I know, but maybe Big Finish will even slow down.
Big Finish is slowing down because they're
they
killing the monthly
down,
range and they're just turning into yearly box sets. Which is good for us if we ever want to catch up, but... Can you imagine 50 years from now when we finally catch up with Big Finish and we've literally consumed every piece of Doctor Who media ever released?
Read every book, read every comic, listened to every Big Finish, watched every episode.
we would be walking versions of the TARDIS wiki.
Oh, God.
Well, thank you for emailing us again, Stephen. Always good to hear from you, and maybe we can have you on the show sometime again for Torchwood.
Yeah, thank you. And so I'm glad you actually brought up that email because I reminded me to bring up a comment that Boz left on the Facebook page. And I'm not going to read it verbatim, but essentially the gist of the comment was that he had watched Torchwood, years ago, and didn't like it. But he said if we were going to watch it, then he would give it another try as well. So I hope you're listening to this, Boz, and I hope you're enjoying Torchwood this time around. And if not, that's okay.
Anyway, if you'd like to reach us, you can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Torchwood. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable and find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook, also check us out on Twitter, TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching Day 1. But until then, the end.